Well, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Just Shauna here to talk about some friggin' books. All right, let's try to make this as quick as we motherfucking can. I say that every time I do a recent wrap up, and every time I have so much footage and I have to cut so much rambling. I have 4 books to talk about today, one of which is a DNF, and one of which is a reread, so I don't have that much to say about it. And then another one is a new release that I have a separate video for that I go more in depth in, so I won't go super in depth now, but anyway, here we go. The first book I have today is By Sea and Sky by Antoine Bandele. This is an indie author. I have read his work before, The Kishi. It's over here somewhere. And this book is in the same world, and this world is an African-inspired world based on African mythology and lore. And yeah, I really enjoy the world. It's incredibly complex and interesting and definitely unique. And this book is following a couple of characters, a couple of different perspectives, and we have some kind of steampunky stuff happening as well, which is really cool. Airships and whatnot, and then pirates. So some airship pirates and then some regular pirates. And I have to say that the general premise and like pirates and things like that isn't necessarily my niche, my jam always, but I did enjoy the story quite a bit. I want to continue with the series, and I noticed I really enjoyed The Kishi as well. Again, super interesting world, the mythology, the lore, the folklore, all of that was really cool, and I liked the characters, and it was well written. But I did notice an improvement even in the writing quality from that book to this book. Again, that one was not bad. That was not poorly written at all. But that was one of his earlier works, perhaps debut, like first novel, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I noticed an improvement, I guess, in that. And just, I'll read the blurb on the back to give you a better idea of what it's actually about, because I suck at fucking synopses. No magic, no brawn, and no pirate crew, Zala seeks to steal back the one treasure that matters to her most, her husband. To succeed, she needs a ship, and not just any ship, but the latest secret invention by the Vaji Empire, an airship. Zala will have to use her wits to overcome scoundrels and nobles alike on her journey through the clouds. But if she's smart enough, she may just have what it takes to save her husband and go down in history as the first sky pirate. Delve into a pirate fantasy inspired by the West Indies, East Africa, and Arabia, where Zala will encounter ruthless raiders, arrogant aristocrats, and imperial secrets. So yeah, like I said, the world is really large and expansive, and that is probably my favorite thing about this book. I didn't necessarily connect with Zala as, she was the main protagonist for sure, obviously, but we did follow a couple others. Yeah, I didn't really connect with her so much. She kind of grated on my nerves a little bit, and it was just completely a personal thing. And the reason I say that like the pirate thing isn't necessarily my jam is the same issues that I had with The Aeronaut's Windlass, which I've loved that book. But when we have like these action scenes of like ships moving around each other and battling each other, I'm this way with battles kind of any kind, like foot, on horseback, whatever the fuck. But certainly with like airships or just regular ships and like maneuvering around each other and coming down at this angle, and I just get disoriented and I just get like, wait, what? And it's just a me thing. It's entirely a me thing. But yeah, if you like action-packed, fast-paced plot with kind of a cast of characters, again, you're following Zala mostly, but there are other characters that you get to know that are really interesting, and you get to see like the other side too. There's like the bad guys versus the good guys, but it's not really like that. It's definitely more nuanced than that. You see that on both sides, there are the good people and the bad people within each side. And they're like conflicting, like on either side, they're conflicting desires and like why they're against each other, really. And yeah, I don't know, it was just really, really interesting. So if all of that sounds good to you, I highly recommend this book. Highly recommend this author as well. I have one of the short stories from, it's Essoan is like the world. And I have one of the short story things, but I want to get like the collection because there's some like prequel stories and there's a prequel novella to this as well, and I want to check that out for sure. I'm super curious to see what happens with these characters and with this world. I just have a feeling that in the next book we're gonna get even more of like the cultures, the different cultures and everything, and I just really love that. On my 1 to 10, I gave this a 6.85, which translates to 3.5 pushinicorns. And I will have the author's site linked down below if you are interested and want to pick up a copy. Next up, the reread is book 4 of the Parasol Protectorate series, Heartless by Gail Carriger. Is anybody surprised that I've really liked it? No? I mean, it's a reread. I knew I liked it. And these books are so much fun. Adult paranormal fantasy again. This one didn't grab me, like the plot didn't grab me quite as much as the last one, but I love her authorial voice. I love Alexia Terabati. Oh my God, I love her so much. I'm so very glad that on this reread, I'm not realizing that I don't actually like the books or something. Cough, cough, like Sookie Stackhouse. Because I realize I kind of fucking hate Sookie Stackhouse, and I still love Alexia. Like, I love Alexia more on the reread than I did the first time around, which I didn't think was possible. But yeah, it's, like I said, book 4 of a 5-book series, so I'm not going to talk too much about the plot. Shenanigans happen. That's all you really need to know. Vampires, werewolves, and shit's going down. On my 1 to 10, I gave this an 8.28, which translates to 4.5 pushinicorns. Still very solid. Very high rating for me. And then the DNF. This was kind of a weird situation because I wasn't hating this book. I wasn't disliking this book at all, actually. I was quite enjoying the authorial voice, especially for it being a classic. And this was the classic on my seasonal TBR, and that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Yeah, I really was enjoying the writing style, like where right here we have like some women that are gathered and talking and socializing, whatever. And Margaret heard her aunt saying, "Edith, Edith," cried she, and then she sank as if wearied by the exertion. Margaret stepped forward. "Edith is asleep, Aunt Shaw. Is there anything I can do?" All the ladies said, "Poor child," on receiving this distressing intelligence about Edith, and the minute lapdog in Mrs. Shaw's arms began to bark as if excited by the burst of pity. I just think that's so funny. And then she's talking about her mom, or no, her mom or Mrs. Shaw? Mrs. Shaw. She goes, "Now that, the general being gone, she had every good of life, with as few drawbacks as possible. She had been rather perplexed to find an anxiety, if not a sorrow. She had, however, of late settled upon her own health as a source of apprehension. She had a nervous little cough whenever she thought about it, and some complacent doctor ordered her just what she desired, a winter in Italy." Like, just the kind of snarky, like, dry, like, British thing. I don't know. I just really enjoy that. And yeah, I got up to page, like, 55 or some shit, maybe 53 right here at the beginning of this chapter. And it had taken me 2 weeks to get that far along. And I kind of just didn't want to continue, like, taking up my time to read this, because I still had that much to go, and I'm like, this is going to take me for fucking ever. It's not even that it's that, like, dense of a writing style. It's just, it's a classic. There's not a lot happening. And the writing style, the language used is a little, you know, it's old-fashioned. So it doesn't just roll off the tongue, or when you're reading it, it's not just, like, super easy. It's not like I had to go back and reread a bunch of shit, but it's just, you know, you got to think about what you're reading, kind of. So yeah, I was enjoying it, but I didn't care enough to actually continue. So I said, you know, fuck it. I don't really care that much. The story, the premise, I was like, I just don't feel like this is going to be anything earth-shattering or groundbreaking. The whole premise is she moves into like an industrial city and coming from the country and has to get used to this, and then takes up the social justice cause of the workers that are the laborers that basically are being shit upon by their boss, who's this guy that then she develops a relationship with. And I mean, I assume they get together, and I don't know. Sounds kind of like he's terrible, but the right woman made him change for the better. And I don't know, that's just a narrative that is a little dangerous. Don't necessarily love. So there we have it. DNF'd. And then this bitch. I didn't hate this, okay? I'm just gonna start off by saying that. I did not hate this book. It was about what I expected. I was hoping to like it more than I was expecting, but I didn't. It's the prequel to The Hunger Games. You all know what it is. I never wanted to read from Snow's perspective. At no point was I like, maybe it'll be eye-opening. And no, I was just, the whole time, I was like, why? Okay, I'm apprehensive. I'm gonna read it though. And I'm glad I read it because I do enjoy like the history of the world and how things came to be and how the games came to be what they were when Katniss was in them and so on and so forth. And there's certain nods to Katniss's time, like the Hanging Tree song, and learning where that song came from and who sang it and why they sang it and whatever, the meaning of it. Things like that were really cool and interesting, and we had some characters that I really enjoyed. Sejanus, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Sejanus, who was also one of the mentors alongside Snow in the 10th anniversary of the Hunger Games. And then Lucy Gray, who was Snow's tribute from District 12. Those two characters were super great, and they kind of made the book for me because following Snow's perspective was tiresome at best and enraging at worst. He's a sociopath. He is a toxic, dangerous, manipulative, possessive, abusive sociopath through and through, from start to finish. Why did I need to read his fucking perspective? We could have gotten the same things that I liked about like how things came to be, how they came up with this part of the games and that part of the games, and we could have had all that from Sejanus's perspective, and he was so much more interesting. He's a kid from District 2. Parents came to wealth, moved to the capital. He had all these conflicting, complex emotions and feelings surrounding the games and being a part of the games in the way that he was. He was a fucking rebel. He was trying to fuck shit up and change things. Why wouldn't we want that story? Like, I so wanted that story. I'm sorry, but okay, this might be a spoiler. I don't know. It happens pretty early on in the book. So I'll put a timestamp when I stop talking about this for a second. It's the romance in the book. So here we go. Spoiler time. Snow and Lucy, okay? Like, why the fuck would I ever root for that? I didn't. I wouldn't. If it had been Sejanus's perspective, and if we had Sejanus and Lucy, oh my God, I would have been in my feels so much. I would have wanted that to happen so badly. I would have been so invested. And when it didn't fucking happen for reasons, my heart would have been broken. It would have had so much more of an impact than fucking Snow being a possessive, jealous nitwit toward Lucy. Like, what the fuck? Why did Lucy, I mean, he was manipulative, so I don't want to say, like, why did she see anything in him? I've been in manipulative, toxic romantic relationships, so I know how that can go. But yeah, like, we know who he is, so we as a reader don't fucking want her to be with him. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It was a choice. It was a choice that Suzanne Collins made, and I'm not sure why she made the choice. Yeah. Sejanus was so much more interesting as a character. Lucy was so much more interesting as a character. And them together would have been just, oh, so great. So yeah, at any rate, on my 1 to 10, I gave this. But the saving grace was just the fact that Sejanus and Lucy were pretty prevalent. They distracted me from Snow's nonsense. And then also seeing the kind of making of the games as they were later on when Katniss was in them. That was kind of cool. And there's the books. Those are the 4 books. I don't think I talked for too long today, so editing Joshana will be grateful to filming Joshana. Let me know down below if you have read any of these, what you thought, if you agree or disagree with my opinions on any of these books. As always, thank you so much for your time. Hope that you guys have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.